Hello, welcome to Emerging Form. I'm Christy Ashwanden.
And I'm Rosemary Watola-Tromer, and this is a show on creative process. Hello, Christy.
Hey, Rosemary.
So I'm thinking a lot about our guest coming up, who is a former farmer. And the book we're going to be talking about has a lot to do with farming. And incidentally, you and I both have a lot of farming and garden experience, lifestyle.
We
I
sure
mean, that's
do. Yeah.
a big
It's a
part of
hard
our
life.
lives.
Yeah.
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 And so I think that's something we have in common with our guest is both a love of land and growing and also a love of writing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. It really is. And I love this novel so much because it really is so much about sense of place and about farming and the seasons. And there's a lot in the book about water and things like that. And, we're really experiencing that this year in Colorado.
Yeah.
We really scaled back our garden this year because we're worried about water and being able to keep all the plants alive. And it's been so hot. And we're really tied to the weather.
Yeah. Not only has it been so hot, but sweetheart, just a week and a half ago, we had a freeze. It was
Really?
30.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. And then it took the basil, the beans, and the dahlias, all the things I would think got hit. And I was like, wait, what? It was in July.
Terrible. In July. Oh,
July.
That's about as bad as it gets with freezes.
I know. And here the sky is full of smoke from the wildfires here. And then it froze. I was like, what is happening?
It's end times. Yeah. Yeah. We lost all of our fruit. Our orchard doesn't have a single fruit in it this year because it got so dry and hot really early in the winter. And the plants started waking up, and then we had just like not even weird weather, just normal weather. We had a freeze and everything was poof gone. So it's a lot. It's a hard life.
It's a hard life. And so it'll be fun, I think, and not just fun, but meaningful to talk with someone about blending these lives of farming and writing, which has been such a big part of your and my experience too.
Yeah. So Rosemary, before you tell us about our guest, I just want to say I'm so excited. She is going to be a speaker at our Grand Mesa Writers Symposium in Cedar Edge, September 11th through 13, which you and I are also going to be speaking at. So I'm really excited to have her be one of our speakers and teachers. She's teaching a workshop.
Well, I can't wait to meet her in person. It's sure been fun talking to her here on Emerging Form. Claire Boyles is a writer and former farmer. Her debut novel, Appraisals, is forthcoming in August 2026. She is a 2022 Whiting Award winner in fiction, the author of Sight Fidelity, which won the High Plains Book Award and was longlisted for the Penn Robert W. Bingham Award, the Colorado Book Award, and the Reading the West Award. Her nonfiction has appeared in Sierra Magazine and Virginia Quarterly Review, among other journals, and she's a screenwriter with multiple credits on the Hallmark Channel. She splits time between Loveland, Colorado, and Ames, Iowa, where she's an assistant professor of creative writing and the environment at Iowa State University. Let's bring her on.
Welcome to Emerging Form, Claire.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We are so excited to have you. And we'll just jump right in, giving us some groundwork about your new book for anyone who hasn't yet read Appraisals. Will you tell us what it's about?
Sure. Appraisals is about a family of small-scale vegetable farmers on Colorado's Eastern Plains during the Great Recession. And Maggie, who is sort of the main, I see her as sort of the main character, grew up on her grandparents' farm in the same area. And she and her grandmother lost that farm as a result of the farm crisis of the 1980s. And Maggie is now farming land that she and her husband kind of came into or purchased actually from his family. And she's just really idealistic and very passionate about agriculture, and especially what's now called regenerative agriculture, but would have then been called sustainable agriculture. And her husband gets laid off, her husband Fish gets laid off, and then in sort of desperation takes a job with an oil and gas company so he's now a participant in a fracking boom that's taking place in their area. And both Maggie and their 15-year-old daughter, Ozzy, are just super outraged by this, and kind of it just causes sort of these ripples through what was a very happy family. And there's also Fish and Maggie both have point of views in the novel, and so does Maggie's grandmother, Flora, who
I love
uh,
Flora. She's such a
yeah,
great character.
me too. Actually, she sort of became the heart of the book for me
Mhm.
too. She's 90 years old when the novel is taking place, and she and Ozzy kind of get up to some hijinks. They do some light monkey wrenching and other
Yeah.
environmental protesting together. And Flora's just thinking a lot about what a good life is and what
Mhm.
she wants to do with the time she has left. And that became a really fun part of the book to write,
Mhm.
actually.
Mhm. I just really liked your depiction of marriage in the novel too. I mean, they obviously have a very troubled marriage, but I think it can be really hard sometimes to write about relationships. And I thought you did a really nice job of capturing the tension between not just the husband and wife, but their daughter and sort of the three generations. It was really interesting.
No, thank you. Thank
Claire,
you.
how did this novel come about?
I would say there were probably two main experiences that it sort of grew from.
Mhm.
Until I was about 8 years old, I grew up on the edge of my grandparents' fruit farm in northern Ohio. They had an
Mm.
apple orchard and a pick your own strawberry field, and they sold
Oh.
peaches and Christmas trees. And they bought that property like sometime in the late 1960s. And my grandpa had his own business. So my
Mhm.
grandma was the one who ran the farm.
Mhm.
And my mom also worked on the farm. She was in charge of the site. There was a cider press in the basement of the barn, and we sold
Oh.
fresh cider. And so
Uh-huh.
she was in charge of the cider operations. Um, and then in 2008, my husband, Maddie, and I bought 20 acres with water rights in eastern Colorado to start a small scale vegetable farm, just much like the one in the book that
Mhm.
Maggie and Fish run. And my grandparents were no longer farming the land at that point. They were leasing
Mhm.
it to a different farmer. But they gave us, my grandma was the first woman I ever saw drive a tractor. And when we started
Oh.
farming, they
Mhm.
gave us that tractor. It was in
Oh.
1952. Alice Chalmers, CA, we called her Alice. She makes a cameo in the novel.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, I love
so
that. What a
yeah, it
great
was
backstory, yeah.
yeah, she was like kind of the kind of tractor that most people would have in their yards as like decoration,
Uh-huh.
like farm yard art. But we used her on our farm. She was our only tractor, and she did great. So we're really lucky to have it. And then I think that's obviously the other experience that the novel came out of, was that experience that Maddie and I had farming out on the plains during the
Mhm.
Great Recession.
Mhm.
And um, there was a fracking boom in Weld County during that time. So the setting of the novel is very much true. It's very much autobiographical. The
Mhm.
rest of it, we can talk about that, but it's
Yeah.
not as much. But so yeah, I think it came out of those experiences. We had to sell the farm basically
Mm.
in 2013. We just were so far in debt, and it was sort of either sell it or I think the bank was going to come for it.
Uh-huh.
So we say we lost it, even though we ended up having a much softer landing than we expected. But I
Mhm.
think so. The book really, I would say, grew out of that sort of agricultural history. It wasn't a commodity agriculture background that I have. It was
Mhm.
always sort of horticultural, small fruits,
Uh-huh.
and sort of a different kind of way of looking at farming.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah.
What do you think are some of the benefits and also some of the challenges about basing a fictional work on real life?
I think it was really hard. It was
Uh-huh.
really important to
Yeah.
me to tell the story, but I didn't want to tell it exactly as it happens. I
Right.
didn't want to write a memoir.
Mhm.
And that's what I love about writing fiction is like this
Mhm.
freedom to change,
Yeah.
to make the story work the way I want it to work
Uh-huh.
instead of just reporting the way the story did work.
Mhm.
But I think it took me a long time to write Maggie and Fish as people entirely separate from my
Mm.
husband and I. And whether
Mhm.
I accomplished that totally, I mean, like, psychology of that is very deep, but I feel like I feel like it was a real challenge. I was very intentional about it,
Yeah.
um, and
Like what? Like what are intentional things that you did to separate?
I think Maggie is a lot stronger than I was and holds agriculture. I mean, I was very idealistic as well. We were doing that because we felt it was a way to live, like,
Mhm.
ethically, and to try to build an ethical food community was really important to us. We were just as idealistic, maybe, but I think she has a conviction about it and is maybe
Mhm.
more willing to, um, put things like her marriage and other things on
Yeah.
the line for it in a way that I definitely wasn't. I think she's much more stubborn than I
Mhm.
was. But in a way, I think that I admire, about her. And I think Fish I think Fish is more me than my husband also.
Interesting.
Uh, Fish's like desire, and Flora's too, they have these desires for like a bigger life than farming really allows you to have. That like
Mhm.
I also had that even though I loved my life. I
Yeah.
recognized what we were sacrificing to be
Mhm.
farmers in terms of spare time and um,
Oh, spare
you
time, what
know,
is that? You
Oh,
never
yeah,
know
right.
if you're a farmer.
yeah. I mean, like, I had been a runner all my life and I'm a
Uh-huh.
runner now, but I was not really a runner while I was farming. We just
Yeah.
like gave all that. I was so tired. I was
Yeah.
No,
working
you're nothing
outrageous
but a
hours.
farmer when you're
Yeah.
farming.
Yeah. For sure.
So I think
Christy's husband's a farmer, and my husband and I were also farmers, like, we
so
know.
yeah, you
Yeah.
both know.
Yeah.
I think I see probably myself, but spread out among
Yeah.
those three
Mhm.
characters, who are also partly my husband and also partly my grandmother and also
Mhm.
partly totally invented, to
Mhm.
serve the story
Yeah.
that I wanted to tell.
So you kind of had this subject matter, right? And you kind of knew you wanted to write about a particular sort of, I don't want to say chain of events, but certain topics and things. Did that sort of come first and then the characters started to come together? Or what was the process of sort of the book's form emerging?
Yeah, I knew I wanted to write about small scale farming. I knew I wanted to write about women farming. I
Mm.
knew I wanted to write about resource extraction and the way that interacts with agriculture and rural communities.
Mhm.
I knew I wanted to write about water. I really
Yeah.
knew I wanted to write about water.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it was more of an issues driven. My writing is often comes to me that way.
Mhm.
It comes to me as like this is something I'm interested in the real life world, and
Yeah.
it's often something kind of political and thorny
Mhm.
and something I don't totally know how I think about entirely. Like what I have some half-formed opinions, and I'm interested in
Yeah.
exploring them.
Mhm.
And then the characters, characters are everything in fiction.
Yeah.
So it's not like I don't care about them. I have to build them then, right? I have to build characters who can interact with the things I want the book to be about and then make them
Mhm.
real.
Yeah.
And so I think early drafts are pretty heavy handed. Like
Uh-huh.
I have a themes and things I want to
Yeah.
say, and then it
Uh-huh.
takes a lot of revision to like
Yeah.
be like, no, this is someone with a heart and
Uh-huh. Yeah.
like a life outside of this also, and so
Yeah.
yeah,
So
Yeah.
I'm curious about this because I actually also wrote a book that had some things that I believe very strongly in thematically, and I had to see both sides much more clearly in order to be fair in the book. And there were things I like that you say that you were kind of half baked on some of the things. Maybe I was less half baked and more like I have an agenda and these are things I care about. And I had to really lose that in the book I was writing. And what did you do when you or did it, first of all, I guess, did it happen that you realized, oh, I'm going to have to broaden my perspective here? And what happened, were there ways that writing about it fictionally helped broaden your perspective or make you more compassionate to multiple sides of an issue?
I would say typically that's how I feel writing fiction works for me, because I
Hmm.
have to put myself in these characters' heads who are not my
Yeah.
heads, and like think
Hmm.
about why they do the things they do that I personally, as a human author, think is wrong or
Yeah.
bad. Um, I think I think the character Paul, the investor that comes from out of state to start buying up land and water, was the hardest character for me. He
Hmm.
was very much a caricature of billionaires in early drafts. But he was also like more present in the story. And I was just really struggling. I don't know. I think I was less able to humanize him as, I started writing this book really back in 2012 when the farm was failing, but I sold the book in 2019, and it just took me all these years of bad drafts to write it. And I think I became so much less sympathetic to billionaires over that time that
Imagine
no, I'm
that.
not kidding. I mean,
Yeah.
haven't we all? They just,
Yeah.
back in 2008. And so I had to keep reminding myself, like in 2008, this wasn't how people saw them as much. It wasn't as like this universal, like they're evil, terrible people who are trying
Hmm.
to take over the world. It's like maybe they can do some good in the world, like I
Uh,
think it was a simpler time or a different
yeah.
time, or at least that's how I think I saw them then. So anyway, I just basically really minimized he had to be in the book and he had to be doing the things he was doing, but his like status in the community, I just really backed him out because
Hmm.
I didn't want to have to humanize him, and I didn't really want to have to like
Interesting.
write him, and I didn't really.
Uh,
So he's present, and when they had conversations, I tried to think about how he saw the world, and I really relied heavily on Justin Farrell's book Billionaire Wilderness, which is a
oh my
sociology
gosh.
book
It sure
about,
is. Yeah. I've
yeah,
read
about the
that book.
Yellowstone
It's,
Club.
yeah.
So I relied really heavily on that book and some other
Hmm.
research to try to piece his character together, but
Hmm.
he was a challenge. I'm not entirely sure. I feel like I a little bit kind of gave up on him and just really put him in the background, but I
That's
don't know.
interesting. To my perspective, it didn't feel like he was just like this evil sort of placeholder. He felt more three-dimensional than that, which is good, right?
I'm
Yeah.
glad. I'm glad
Yeah.
he does. He yeah, I don't know that he achieved what I would typically want a character to achieve in terms of like how they are in a book. I
Enlightenment.
just
No, he didn't get
I
there.
yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't want
Yeah.
him. I just
Yeah.
didn't. I also think like maybe there are layers of him I didn't find because
Yeah.
I don't. I just decided that wasn't my point. Was to try to
Yeah.
humanize the billionaires that are buying up all the land. That was not the
Right.
point of the book. So
Right.
so I don't know, Rosemary. I feel like that is something I went in being like, that is a terrible idea. It's a terrible idea for private individuals to own all of our land and water.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that
Is
did not change.
Yeah.
Writing the book did not change that
Yeah.
opinion. I still
yeah.
hold that opinion. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder, this novel really touches on a lot of, current events then and now. I mean, they're continuing to be, big important issues, right? And these things that are playing out, water, the tension between resource extraction, food production, and also just like sort of the difficult economics of trying to make a go of farming. And I wonder, how do you write about those issues in a way that isn't preachy? And you sort of mentioned this, like the first draft was kind of maybe more preachy and more heavy-handed, but how do you find that lighter touch, and how do you sort of make it so that it doesn't feel like it's just sort of pushing a particular perspective down readers' throats?
I think it's something I've just had to accept about my process is like the
Mm.
early drafts will be kind of bad that way.
Uh-huh.
And I'll have to revise, and there will be some really ruthless cutting
Mhm.
involved. But I really, because especially in fiction, it's a really important balance. If the fiction's dealing with something current and topical and political, like what is the right way to tell that story fictionally? And I do try to think about things people in real life communities like that actually
Mm-hmm.
do, actions they
Yeah.
take, how they talk about those disagreements and how they
Yeah.
bridge those gaps. And at least my experience of living in rural eastern Colorado was certainly that we were, rural spaces are much more diverse in terms of thought and
Yeah.
population than I think, the people give them credit for. But we
Absolutely.
were certainly, I think, in a political minority out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did come up, into conflict with our neighbors over various things, but they were
Mm-hmm.
also our neighbors and
Yeah.
we took care of each other, we
Yeah.
did despite that. And we left, we moved back to like the urban Front Range in 2013. And I don't know how the past few years of polarization have changed those interactions in those spaces. I don't know if there's still, but there was a certain etiquette around
Mm-hmm.
managing it that it kind of allowed for community to form despite
Yeah.
it in our
Mm-hmm.
experience. I'm not sure that's still the experience because I find that's maybe less of an experience in American life at this moment
Mm-hmm.
All
anyway.
across.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I just think having lived through those things was really helpful. And then just remembering, right? It all
Mm-hmm.
has to come through character.
Yeah.
Anything,
Oh,
any
yeah.
issue, any
Yeah.
opinion, it all has to run through the character. So then it's like, not what do I think, but how would Maggie in this specific time of her life dealing with this specific issue, how would she talk to Gus who's running the ditch and
Mm-hmm.
how would he react to her?
Yeah.
I think just thinking about like how are real people interacting
Yeah.
around these issues, and then how would these characters interact specifically. So I think that is what I try to remember. Another challenge
Mm-hmm.
I think is just thinking like if you're going to deliver some facts in interiority, which is often the way like Maggie thinks in the novel a few times about like how water rights work in Colorado,
Yeah.
because that was
Right.
sort of the vehicle I had
Right.
for
Sure.
delivering
Yeah.
that information in a
Yeah.
fictional novel. So like I have to make it plausible. Why is she thinking about those things?
Yeah.
Why would it be coming up now? So having a teenager in the room to like explain something to is a
Oh,
pretty
Mm-hmm.
that
useful
helps.
device.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
like I think, I don't know. So those are some techniques I feel like have worked for me in this novel anyway, and also in other writing. But I think it's a constant challenge, and it's
Mm.
something I'm always monitoring when
Yeah.
my fiction is topical, which for some
Yeah.
reason seems like it just is. That's just what it's going to
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
Keeping it in the character.
Yeah.
That's really important. The other thing I'm thinking about, just speaking of character and thinking about you, the character um, of you and how once upon a time you were a farmer. And I'm just curious now that you're doing more writing, teaching, what did you learn as a farmer? Like, were there skills or values or work ethic or something that you learned as a farmer that you apply in your creative life now?
I mean, I think it's discipline,
Mhm.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, as a farmer, like you have to go out every day and put
Yeah.
eyes on those crops or they will die. And I
Yeah.
think um, just coming to see everything that's important to me in my life, if you treat
Mhm.
it with that level of discipline and that level of care, like the things you care about, you have to tend, and anything you
Yeah.
just put over here is at least going to struggle,
Yeah.
if not pass entirely from your life. So I think I really I try to apply that now intentionally to my writing and
Mhm.
my creative life, my creative like heart, not just the
Uh-huh.
work I'm
Yeah.
producing, although I am disciplined about sitting down, typically I'm disciplined about sitting down to the desk, but also like about intentionally trying to live a creative life, a
Yeah.
life that I'm intentional that way with relationships and friendships. Like I try to tend them, because if you don't tend them, they're gonna go. So, yeah,
Absolutely.
I think
Yeah.
it's a pretty basic metaphor, but I think it works really well
Yeah.
when to almost everything that you care about.
Anything else? Any other metaphorical threads or pieces?
I mean, there's so many, like, like, I feel like it's almost comical. You'll be like, well, here I am pulling the weeds, and I could pull some
Right?
weeds from my life, and
Oh,
I could,
yeah.
like, it's just kind of endless
Oh, yeah.
chicken metaphors about, like, hen-pecking people
Yeah.
or whatever it
Mhm.
is. I mean, I think there is, it's kind of what I love about it, right? The language is so
Mhm.
rich, but I think it's also like you do have to they're pretty well trodden metaphors. Farming's been around for a long
Mhm.
time, and so has writing. So I think you do have to
Yeah.
be. I did find myself being like, is that cliched? It felt, it felt fresh
Yeah.
to me, but is that
Mhm.
just like what everybody says? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Interesting. Claire, I want to hear a little bit about how it is you became a novelist. So you were a farmer, you were doing these other things. Can you just talk a little bit about your path from there to being, I mean, this is a big deal. Your first novel published by a major publisher, with some good fanfare and all of that. How did that come about?
Sometimes I can't really believe it, honestly.
Should we pinch
I
you?
mean, kind
Yeah.
of, please. I mean, I think it started when we bought the farm, and this is going to
Mhm.
sound, I don't, but I started blogging. It was
Uh-huh.
2008. I
Uh,
started a blogger account and wrote about farming, and I just started writing every day. And
mhm.
I just realized like it was a way to make meaning, and it felt
Mhm.
good to do it. It felt good
Oh.
to kind of think not just about what happened, but about how to tell the story
Mhm.
of what happened. And during those years too, my brother, who is also a writer, he and I were we were writing TV shows. We were trying to pitch TV shows. So we were writing pilots and pitches, and he was in LA and he was trying to. So that just became like that's kind of how I discovered fiction, was through
Interesting.
like, how would this happen? We thought we would try to like write uh not not redo Little House on the Prairie like they have just done.
Yeah.
That has just apparently, I haven't seen it, but apparently it just came
Yeah.
out. But like a updated contemporary Little House on the Prairie, like people on a farm like mine, and we were pitching
Uh-huh.
these, and it was uh it was insane. Like there was one meeting we had with MTV where they're like, "Yeah, we're into farming. We'd love to find the right way to, but this isn't the right pitch, but maybe pitch us some other things." So we pitched them like farming on the moon and like
Oh my,
farming.
oh
We
my gosh.
pitched them like the craziest. But that's why fiction is so great, right? Because we just
Yeah.
came up with it. There was like
You
rooftop
can try
farming in
anything, yeah.
Portland. It was like someone's aunt, and we called it Ant Farm. And it was like,
Oh,
we
Oh
just
my
like
hilarious.
gosh.
so yeah, and it was just for fun. Like there was no world in which I ever like, but I wanted to write a book. I was like, okay, maybe
Uh-huh.
I thought it would maybe be a memoir because I was blogging.
Mhm.
And then I just got so much more interested in fiction, and the farm started failing, and I could
Mm.
like see the writing on the wall, and I just went to the library in Greeley, Colorado, and I checked out 5 years worth of the best American short stories.
Oh,
And I
wow.
read them all.
Mhm.
I read all five of those books,
Uh,
and I wrote a short story, and I
uh-huh.
submitted it to a contest for like a local writers
Mhm.
group, the Northern Colorado Writers, and it won. Like I
Wow.
was not expecting that. And it felt I don't know, it just felt like, oh, well, maybe this is something I could do. So once
Mhm.
the dust settled, um, I just started. My husband and I sort of negotiated. I'm like, I want to go get an MFA. And he was like,
Mhm.
well, okay. It wasn't, our kids were like in middle school and late
Uh.
elementary school. And he was like, I'm not sure that's the best use of the college fund that we're going to have but I mean, he was right. And he like has never, we're not the kind of spouses that like are like, no, no,
Yeah. Mhm.
no. So, yeah, I applied and I got into Colorado State and I went. I was teaching high school full time, so I was a non-traditional student. I just
Mhm.
took whatever classes they were offering in the evening,
Mhm.
and I got my MFA that way and wrote a short story collection. And then that sort of has
That was
led
published. I
to
mean,
this.
that's no
Yeah,
easy feat. I
Yeah.
mean, that's a
no,
big
Especially short
deal.
stories.
Short
Totally.
stories are kind of some of
yeah.
the hardest things to sell,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, all of this that has happened now it was like that was so far beyond my ambition. I was like, well,
Mhm.
maybe I'll get a book published if I'm lucky. But like, especially the short stories, I had been submitting it to, small press contests and things
Mhm.
like that. And I would have, like, still, I think would be thrilled to have a book be published that way, I
Mhm.
think, but it just, the way it happened for Norton to take it and to get the 2-book deal,
Yeah.
that really, it was just, it still feels like a really amazing stroke of luck. And even though there was a fair amount of work to get
Yeah.
there, it still also feels like luck. So it feels like magic, and I don't know. So my goal has been just not to take it for granted,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Well, I
That's
think luck, hard
fantastic.
work, and magic is a really good place for us to end. What a
Yeah.
beautiful story. And I think, by the way, what a great thing for your daughters to see that their
Yeah.
Oh,
mom
thank
went
Yeah.
and
you.
got an MFA and freaking made it work. So, wow.
Yeah.
Way to go, Claire. Way
Thank
to
That
you.
is
go.
great.
Thank you.
That's great.
It was, yeah, I'm glad. I hope that's how they experienced it too. We'll see. Time will tell.
Uh, well, I'm excited to keep talking with you. Those of you listeners who are paid subscribers to Emerging Form, we're going to have a special bonus episode next week with Claire, in which I've got a whole bunch more questions I want to ask about your process and creativity, and we'll have those in our bonus episode. Emergingform.substack.com is where you can become a paid subscriber for just a couple of bucks a month.
Also, I have a feeling we're going to be talking about the sex lives of tarantulas.
Oh,
Just saying.
yes.
You'll want to
Don't
listen in
miss
for
it.
that.
Don't miss it. Yeah. If you like our show, visit us at emergingform.substack.com, where you can find more, including show notes and back episodes.
There, you can also sign up for our bi-weekly newsletter or become a paid subscriber, which gets you bonus episodes every other week.
That's emergingform.substack.com.
You've been listening to Emerging Form. This is Rosemary Watola-Tromer, and my co-host is science writer Christy Ashwanden. Our fabulous audio producer is Cherie Turner, and our music is created and performed by Kira Kopostansky and edited by Leah Shaw. Kate LaRue designed our logo, and Jack Mueller, of course, inspired our work and the name of this podcast. As he always said, you must obey the poem's emerging form. Until next time.